Hi, how's it going everyone? Bastiaan here, and today I want to actually make a highly requested video from a lot of entrepreneurs that I've actually asked the question of what is the number one thing holding you back, and it turns out to be that it's actually self-sabotage. People really getting in their own way, and I'm guilty of this too. And I'm also in this video going to be sharing my own experience of self-sabotage and really what I've learned throughout like this entire journey of doing it over and over again, and then finally understanding the principles to stop it, end it, and really, just grow as an individual personally as well as like in my business. So that's what I want to be talking about today, on how to stop self-sabotage. And if you're currently going through it, or you maybe sometimes have some relapses where this occurs, really 5 key things that you can start implementing to really put this to an end and focus on growing your business and growing yourself as an individual. But before I dive into it, I just first wanted to quickly announce that we have a Facebook group, and it's a great place to actually get some help if you're an agency owner or a consultant. We answer your questions in this Facebook group. We also do daily lives. We give value. We post daily content specifically just for the Facebook group. So it's just a really good place to get some help at if you're an agency owner or a consultant, just starting out and wanting to go to 6 figures, or even like if you're currently at 6 figures and trying to break that 40 to 50K a month mark. So the Facebook group is a great place to get some help at and also network with some like-minded people. Other thing I wanted to mention is we've actually opened up what we've called the Agency Autopilot program, and we've helped a tremendous and incredible amount of people really starting their agency from scratch, growing into the 6-figure mark or even multiple 6 figures. And we're even going to be doing interviews with these people on a channel very, very soon. So if that's something you're interested in checking out on starting or growing your agency, you can go ahead, check the link in the description, and see for yourself. So with that out of the way, let's dive right into the video. So basically the first thing I want to talk about is, replacing motivation for discipline. So I'm just going to write that down real quick. So replacing motivation for discipline. I've had a lot of instances where I just wait for my motivation to return. Like I'd wait for the month to end and then I just really start going hard with my business because it'd be like a perfect time to, pick everything back up and get things back in motion and get things cranking. But, when you think of it like in a long-term way, there's no longevity in motivation. Motivation is like a temporary fuel that if it's gone, you just stop and you stop doing everything, right? And your business basically stops and everything is just freezing and the momentum you may have created for yourself is gone, right? Now, what I've actually done to practice this, and I'm still doing it, like practicing it and preaching it as I'm doing right now, and it's doing fitness. So what I've actually recently gone ahead and started to do is go back to the gym again and also eat my 4 meals a day. And this is, in my own experience, a great practice of discipline, right? Like a first principle that I always have in my Alchemy of Self, which is a workbook that I go through every single morning to really, grow into the individual I want to become and have like a really clear picture of where I'm headed to. And what it really is how you do one thing is how you do everything. So whenever I don't feel like going to the gym, I do it. Right? Because whenever I don't feel like doing something for my business, I just do it, right? And real good business people rely on discipline and they do not rely on motivation. Because if you, think about it, if you want something that no one else has, you have to do stuff that no one else really does, but the top 1%, right? And ultimately it comes down to discipline. And sometimes you hear people say, "Oh, Bas, but you're supposed to love what you do, right? You got to be passionate about it." And I will hardly agree with that, but there's going to be big parts and consistent parts throughout the journey which you will not enjoy doing. For me, it's like accounting, organizational work, but I still do it because it has to get done, right? So replace your motivation for discipline. And a great thing to make this really, practical for you, and what I recommend, is fitness. So set out for yourself to go a certain amount of days to the gym and do it. Like yesterday, I didn't want to go, I did it. The day before, I didn't want to go the entire week, but I did it, right? And this is just like gonna make you feel better about yourself, and it's gonna reflect positively back into your business, especially considering that this is almost factual in my opinion. That's how you do one thing is how you do everything. So when you get this right, you get a lot of things right in your personal life as well as your business. You just show up, you do it, you feel good about yourself, and you create a lot of momentum, and you don't hop off the momentum. That's the biggest thing, right? Like, I think a lot of people are capable of doing amazing things, but when the momentum is gone, it's kind of a shame, honestly. So that's the first thing. Replace your motivation for discipline. It's quite a simple one, but it's, it's more about practice when it comes down to this one. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is be clear on your objectives, right? So I see a lot of people, starting their agency or starting their coaching business, and they don't really have a goal. They don't really know what they want, right? They don't really have an objective. And when you don't know what you want, you don't know what kind of actions to take to get to that goal, right? But if you don't have a goal, then any action is kind of invalid to take because you don't know where you want to go to, right? And I know that there's a lot of controversy between raising your standards and setting a goal, but I think both are really important to get direction, right? Like, in my opinion, setting a goal so you know what actions to take is important, right? So you know what to do in practice and in your business, and how you can chunk down this goal into like annual goals and into monthly goals, into weekly, daily, hourly goals. And when it comes down to raising your standards, this really just comes down to doing this every single day, and that's like the bare minimum thing you'd accept of yourself, right? And a lot of people just confuse with setting goals. It's like this big dream you're achieving, but it's just doing this every single day, honestly. That's what it's been in my experience. I'm far from where I want to be at. I think like so far, my agency is doing great. We also have an education company that's doing fantastic. Students are getting great results, but I want to scale my agency and I want to scale my education business. And for that, I have to go through a whole entire new level of discipline, right? And that's like what I'm headed for right now. So to get back to point 2, be clear on what you want to achieve, right? And now you may be wondering, well, Bas, what if my goal is my goal even a good goal? Is it realistic? The time frame I've attached to it. Well, what I always say when people ask that is, how far are you in your journey is the first question I ask, because a lot of people think it's just going through a program and implementing the business and tactics from a program, but you also have to really entirely change as a person, right? You have to change the way you think, the way you behave. Maybe some of the habits you have are, not really healthy for you, and therefore you have to replace them. And this is like a process that takes time. And this is, in my opinion, with all of the successful students that I've helped grow their agency, what they all have in common is that they've completely changed as a person. Before and after, they're really not the same person anymore, right? Physically, sure they are, but really, if you spoke to the guy of Colton, for instance, one of my top students doing 10K a month, a year ago versus now, he's an entirely different person. And this is really, what's going to be happening when you go for that objective, right? A lot of people and YouTube channels talk about the best kind of outreach methods, and I do too, because it definitely does play an importance in getting to the 10K month mark. But what a lot of people don't talk about is this kind of stuff and mindset, right? And you have to really change the way you perceive reality and, how you manage your time. And, entrepreneurship is a whole practical journey, and you just get better at it every single day. I used to think that I'd have to make a productivity checklist and do 50 things a day, when in reality, it's really just focusing on things that move the needle for you, right? And, looking at elimination, automation, delegation, building a team around yourself. And these are all stepping stones for me also to a bigger venture in the future. But I'm gonna get back to 2 here. You really wanna be clear on your objectives and give yourself time, right? Give yourself time. If you set an objective, if you are literally super new to the space and you don't know anything about personal development and you wanna hit 10K in 3 months, I'm sorry to break it to you, but it's almost impossible, okay? Unless you have some prior agency experience. But if you're a complete beginner, and you don't know anything about the agency space, give yourself at least 6 to 12 months if you want to hit the 10K a month mark, because maybe you're skeptical about mindset right now, but 6 months from now, you'll realize it's something you have to go through, right? And entrepreneurship is all about doing what you usually don't do. And that's something that I've learned from the Myers-Briggs test, which I'll also dissect like in a later YouTube video because it's also really invaluable. But I'm gonna get back here to thing number 3. So note down, and this is something that I've learned from my mentor, patterns is what he calls it, patterns of existence. Now, what does this mean, right? So, we as humans do things that we know how to do, and when we know how to do it, it creates some kind of routine and habit, right? Because that way we can conserve most of our energy. We don't really have to think about it, right? That's why most people just have a very strict morning and evening routine because they get used to it. They don't really have to think about it, and it's very efficient. But you'll notice in life, and I'll give a practical example of myself. You have peaks in your business and your personal life, you have peaks and you have troughs, right? And basically the most important thing with this is that you observe yourself objectively. Now, I know when I'm at the 40 to 50K a month mark, right? Like this is my peak. When I'm at the 40 to 50K a month mark, I notice that I am killing it with my routines. I'm going to the gym, I'm eating properly. My team's moral and autonomy is extremely high. Everything is going well. But then I sort of take it for granted and I start stopping, building on my momentum and focusing on the things that move the needle. And I kind of like drop down to my average, right? Where we then in the next month see about 20 to 35K in our business in profit, right? And I've actually never gone below 20K, but I know when I'm at like my lowest, we're about 10 to 15K a month. And when I do that, I just gear back up, get all the way back up to the top, and I just crush it again, right? But, it's always like these inconsistent turns I used to make in my business. And once I started like noticing and writing down why this happened, why this occurred, and I, warped myself of the move back, I stopped doing the moves back and I just stayed at the top. I kept riding the momentum, and that way I raised my standards, right? That's really what, in my book, raising your standards means. It's being aware of your patterns of existence, right? To give another example, right? This is more of a simple one. I remember when I'd have $3,000 in my bank account, I'd feel, just okay, like pretty average. But, when I'd somehow have about 5K cash in the bank, I would just start spending it, and I would be back down to 1K, right? And when I'd be back down to 1K, I would just be freaked out because my average would be 3K, and I would do everything to get back to 3K. So I'd get a job, I'd do a project here and there, and I'd be back up to 3K, right? And it's like this never-ending cycle because the lack of awareness that I had of it, right? And once I started like having awareness over, like my best months, my worst months, my average months, I did, just consistently what would take me to those best months. And then, you basically just create like a new standard for yourself. Like this peak you had becomes your bare minimum standard, right? And that's like kind of the way I like to explain it. So note down your own patterns of existence, right? And this is gonna take time, right? Because if this has never been brought to your attention before and it's a completely new concept, you have to start like kind of seeing for yourself, okay, so what are kind of like the average in my bank's account? When do I feel like, I'm absolutely growing in life and, building some sort of new momentum way for myself? And when you like note down these sort of things, you'll see what kind of actions you take when you're at your peaks, some kind of actions you take when you're at your lowest and on your averages, right? And you just want to replicate what you're doing consistently when you're at those best kind of months, etc. So that's noting down your patterns of existence, really becoming aware of your own patterns as a human being. That's like all we are as human beings. We just execute upon certain patterns, habits, routines, rituals, right? And that is like the sum of our reality, right? So that's number 3. Note down your own patterns of existence, stay at the best months, and raise the bar for yourself consistently. Now, number 4 is a big one, and I'll also give you a practical example. And guys, like everything that I'm writing down here, I've done myself. So, and this has really changed my life. And I just want to share this with you. So number 4 is change your environment. Now, I remember, and guys, I'm like mad transparent with you, like with where I was at. And the things I had to go through. And I remember like when I had a porn addiction, my environment would just absolutely mess with me, right? I remember, starting my own entrepreneurial business in my bedroom where I'd, like have that addiction, and I would also play video games. And then a month later, I'd start my own entrepreneurial business. And every single week, I'd notice like kind of an urge to refer back to those dopamine spikes, right? Because that's like always, kind of what your brain wants. But it made it so hard for me to grow as, an agency owner. And when I really started changing my environment, like when I went to Serbia, and I explained, for those of you who don't know, like I entirely changed as a person in Serbia. You can actually watch one of my latest videos, which is how I went from 0 to 40K a month. But when I went to Serbia, I could read all of that stuff, like right away. And that was simply because I changed my environment. And I wasn't even aware of this until I, was at 20 to 30K a month, and I started to like learn how big of an impact your environment can have on you. And then I started reflecting back on, my venture in Serbia, and it changed everything for me, right? And now I'm not telling you to go to Serbia or some other country. It's definitely something I would suggest if you're capable of doing it financially. But other than that, like something minimum viable I'd recommend is just really changing the space you work in, right? Because when you do 5 different things in your bedroom, right? Like you study, you live your personal life there, you live your school life there, you live your entrepreneur life there. It's all going to be really messing with your head, and it won't be organized, right? And you're just going to confuse yourself very subconsciously. At least what I had, and it's really easy to refer back to the things you are trying to get away from, right? So changing your environment can have a massive impact on you. Because like in your current environment, or maybe at least for myself, there was certain stimuli already released, right? Like when I'd stop with video games and it'd be nighttime, like that bad addiction would come up, I would do the job and I would go to bed, and that's it. And it would all go automatically because I was in that environment, right? And when I changed my environment, my life changed, honestly. And out of all these, this is going to be probably the biggest impact one upon your entire life, changing your environment, right? So that's honestly like the thing that truly changed everything around for me majorly. And yeah, changing your environment can do a lot of good things for you. So, if you're currently living with your parents or you live with yourself right now, doesn't really matter. Like the most important thing that I'd recommend, a part of moving from a country, is changing your workspace, right? So if you're currently working from your bedroom, work in the living room, or maybe if you got like a little office space somewhere in your house, go to the office space and work over there, right? Don't confuse yourself, and really dedicated office space simply to working, and you'll notice your focus just extending, right? So yeah, that's number 4. It's been a massive game changer for myself, and I highly recommend it to everyone. And I'm probably also going to make like a future video on what it's like to live in Serbia, because it's, really, a lot of people think it's dangerous here and it's terrible, but like it's really affordable. For the place I'm currently in, I'm only paying $2,200 a month, and it's a full-on penthouse. Like the taxi rides for 20 minutes are only like €2. And there's a lot of other benefits to it, but I'll save that for another video in the future. Now, number 5 is get a coach or accountability partner. So I'll just write it down, get a coach. And one of the biggest things that was a game changer for me, because I've done both of these, and I'm still in contact with both of these people, is the coach. So most of you know that I had a mentor, and I'm actually gonna have a call with him today to talk about my business and how I can start scaling it up to that 7-figure level. And Trey Cockrum, most of you guys know him, is one of the guys I started working with back in August. It's actually a year ago from now. And Trey, like, I don't know where to start. Like, Trey's really helped me stay accountable. And a part of me being disciplined, he even helped me, like, on top of that, to add a layer of motivation to always what I'm doing. When I signed up with Trey, I was still having a lot of bad addictions. I didn't know how to think right. I didn't really know what to focus on. I would just work 10-hour days. And he helped me, like, put those 10-hour days into like 2 to 3 hour days. And now it's even like I've got to delegate it to one of my team members who's taking care of like, you know, the thing I spend 10 hours a day on. And I can really just work on the business and not in it because of him. So that's number one, because of Trey, I'm working on the business and not in it. Number two, he's just motivated the shit out of me. And number three, Trey's also become a really highly valued friend. And that's really important to have in entrepreneurship, because before I, you know, had my partner, Danny, you know, entrepreneurship is a really lonely journey, right? And that's something you will just have to accept when you're an entrepreneur. But, you know, because of Trey, I was able to also, you know, get my girlfriend and soon to be wife. And, you know, he's basically just entirely changed my life around. And I am planning on doing a huge investment soon again, because I just miss being sort of a student, right? Because when you become some sort of a teacher yourself, you, at least for myself, I was like, wow, I kind of know everything already, right? And then I was like, wow, that's a stupid mindset, right? Like that's a stupid mindset. You need to invest into something ASAP, because I enjoy truly the time of being a student, and that's like really where I grew the most. And that's what I plan on doing soon again. But then again, like that's just a part of the learning curve of like how I, you know, like came up with the top process, and now I'm just referring back to, okay, you need to be a student, because if you think you know everything, that's just dumb, right? So that's what I plan on doing. And then accountability partner. So back in 2019, January, when I was starting my agency, I was looking for an accountability partner, and I found it within a week. His name is Daniel Vo. He works actually with one of my buddies now, Quasi. He's a sales rep for Reality Creator. He does about 5 to 10K a month, and I helped him do his first few cold calls. He helped me do my first few cold calls. He's like seen me lock in my first multiple agency clients, and it just motivated me to stay on track when I had an accountability partner. So that was really key for me, but the biggest one was definitely a coach. And as I said, planning to do another huge investment soon, which I will be sharing with you guys, because I just want to like share my entire journey of like building and growing my agency here on YouTube, and that's what I plan on doing. So yeah, guys, that's like the entire video. I'm just gonna sum everything up again. So number one is replace motivation for discipline. Just remember that how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? If you don't show up to one thing, you won't show up to another thing. If you show up to your business, you'll show up in fitness. If you show up in fitness, you'll show up in business. It's just like a constant reflection of, you know, how you do certain things, and it just reflects back into your life entirely. Now, be clear on your objectives. So know what you want, because if you don't know what you want, you don't know what kind of actions to take, because it's not validated based on your goal, right? And just doing, you know, like a lot of things and not knowing where you're headed for is kind of, you know, going to the airport and without a ticket and just taking a plane to anywhere and then just wondering when you arrive at a destination, how did I get here, right? So be clear on your objectives. Number three is know down your patterns of existence. So start observing yourself. If this concept is new to you, start observing yourself, and you know down your best months, know down your worst months, know down where you're kind of like averaging at, right? And always aim to raise the bar for yourself. Number four, change your environment, and I'll probably make a separate video on this, because this is, in my opinion, extremely invaluable. This is honestly, in my opinion, you know, like almost, I'm not gonna say that, but it's like the fastest way to change as an individual. It's really crazy. And then lastly, invest into yourself, right? Get a coach. Also, another thing I didn't even say is like, if you don't invest into yourself, how do you expect others to invest into you, right? Like I see a lot of people also in the agency space just starting, and they are wanting to get agency clients off of free YouTube videos, but they're not even like investing a single dollar into their own business, right? So just imagine you are, you know, like a business owner, and you have an agency owner approach you, and this agency owner has just like started his online business from his bedroom, just watching YouTube videos, and you're trusting him with your entire marketing strategy. Would you do that? Probably not. But when he's actually learned it from someone, and this is not a plug for my coaching or anything, but really like, you know, if you don't invest into anything, it's gonna be quite hard to, you know, give the value that the businesses would ask from you, really give it to them. It's almost kind of impossible. So get a coach or an accountability partner. That's truly what I recommend, and that's how you can stop self-sabotaging and get to your goals as fast as possible. So guys, thank you for watching this video. As I mentioned, if you want some help with starting or growing your agency, we actually have a Facebook group, which is a great place to be at with like-minded people. I'll link it down in the description so you can just join. It's totally for free. Or if you feel like actually taking another step into starting or growing your agency to that 6-figure mark level by simply learning from people who have already done it, you can also go to the description, check out the Agency Autopilot program, and see for yourself if it's a good fit for you. So thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.